We do, Your Honor. At this time, the plaintiff would like to call Bailey Johnson.
You're pre-sworn. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Please state your name for the court.
Bailey Johnson.
And Mr. Johnson, how are you associated with today's case?
Well, I am a past president of the American Scuba Diving Association, and I remain very active in the scuba community. I have long been concerned about the safety practices of Neptune underwater, and when I heard about this bid, I can't say that I was surprised. But I knew that an investigation needed to be done, and I felt that I was the one that needed to do it.
Now, do you have any special training or certifications that qualify you to do this sort of investigation?
Yes, I am an expert diver and expert dive instructor. I am certified as a master instructor and course director by PADI. I am certified to teach rec, deep, night, and many other specialty dive courses.
I'm sorry, can you please tell us what PADI is?
Yes, it's the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. They're the gold standard in scuba safety, in scuba instruction.
And with all of your experience, have you ever been published on the area of scuba diving?
Yes, I have. I've been published more than 20 peer-reviewed articles. Actually, an article that I co-authored with Hayden Hathaway is Scuba Diving 101, remains the accurate summary of scuba safety standards and is considered the leading treatise in scuba.
And have you ever been tendered to the court as an expert before?
Yes, I have.
Now, Mr. Johnson, how long have you been diving?
I've been diving for over 24 years, and I've actually been on over 2,000 dives, 1,200 of which I led. 300 of these dives were to over 200 feet, and 12 have even been to over 300 feet.
And what is your current profession?
I am the owner and CEO of Scuba Challenge, which is the largest U.S.-based scuba guide company. And in 10 years, we've served more than 25,000 customers and have received 40 safety awards.
Now, a moment ago, you said that you had long been concerned with the safety practices of Neptune. Were you familiar with them prior to doing this investigation?
Oh, yes. Years ago, Hayden Hathaway, the owner of Neptune Underwater, worked for me. Got her start with me. She was one of the finest divers I had ever employed, and for that matter, one of the finest divers I'd ever seen. So good, in fact, that she went on to open her own company, known for going to sites that no other company would go to.
Now, can you tell us a little more about these sites that no other company will go to?
Neptune is most known for risky dives like the Hepburn. This is a yacht sunk into 170 feet at its most shallow point. A wreck at this depth is meant only for technical divers, but Neptune brings recreational divers there. And recreational divers are never supposed to go past 130 feet.
Now, you said that you did an investigation in this case. Can you tell us how you went about doing this?
Well, I use dive standards accepted in the industry by scuba dive organizations and backed by medical experts and the U.S. Navy. I reviewed affidavits, maps, weather reports, and dive logs to determine these standards were followed and to determine if any errors occurred. And
did you find any errors in your investigation?
Unfortunately, yes, I did. First, Lee Allen was allowed to dive beyond his experience and certification. And second, Neptune deviated from accepted safety standards in the industry.
Let's talk about your first finding. What?
So I'm stuttering problem.
Oh, okay. I was like, Sam kept doing like this, and I was wondering if she was trying to tell me something. And then I realized she wasn't. So I was sitting here going, do I have something?
Sounds like I'm trying to show the other team something.
Oh, okay. Okay. I wonder. Okay, let's talk about your first finding. How was Lee Allen allowed to dive beyond his experience and certification level?
Well, advanced open water certification, which is the certification that Lee Allen had, only trains and certifies divers for dives up to 130 feet. But the number of feet that Lee Allen was going to be going on the Hepburn dive was 170. Far too deep for a recreational diver like the Allens. The risk at this depth is exponentially higher than it is at, say, 120 feet or 130 feet. It is far more likely that a diver will experience nitrogen narcosis at this level, and air reserves become more critical, decompression is more challenging, and this depth is just not meant for recreational divers.
Now, you said it's far more likely that a diver will experience nitrogen narcosis. Can you tell the court what nitrogen narcosis is?
Yes, excuse me. It's an underwater condition making divers feel...
Objection, Your Honor, improperly opinion.
Do you have a response?
I do. You're under, this is not a lay opinion, you've been tendered as an expert in diving. Nitrogen narcosis is a condition that is exclusive to the dive community.
We would ask that the testimony be held to basics and no medical testimony come out during this witness.
He's not planning to tender any medical information.
I'll overrule the objection, but keep it to strictly basics and renew your objection if he goes past that.
Yes, Your Honor.
You said that nitrogen narcosis is far more likely. Can you please tell us what nitrogen narcosis is?
It's an underwater condition making a diver feel intoxicated, and it impairs judgment and motor skills.
And can nitrogen narcosis be prevented on dive?
It can't be prevented, but it can be handled safely to a certain extent. The only way to recover from narcosis is to ascend in the water. In diving, there's a practice called the buddy system. This is where two divers stay together underwater at all times to help each other in a moment of crisis. Once someone recognizes signs in themselves, or their buddy for that matter, the buddy pair should immediately head to the surface. This is the most effective way to avoid injury or death while experiencing narcosis, and in all other dive emergencies for that matter.
Now, if the buddy system is the most effective way to deal with nitrogen narcosis, did Lee Allen have a dive buddy on the day of his death? Or her
Well,
death?
yes and no.
Objection like foundation. We haven't heard any information as to how this witness knows anything about the events of that day or what information he's using.
Do you have a response?
I do, Your Honor. He said that he's reviewed the affidavits, the events of the day, the itinerary, as well as dive sites and maps to do his investigation.
Then I would amend my objection to lack of personal knowledge, as he's about to testify to the specific events of that day. We haven't heard any specific instance of how he's gathered this information.
According to Rule 703, he's allowed to testify to the underlying facts and data that he used to draw his conclusions. The affidavits that he used are what contain this information, and they're the information that he's fixing to extract to tell you how he came to his conclusions.
May I be heard? Under 703, he is authorized to testify to this to show a scientific opinion. We've heard no scientific opinion. We're merely headed towards him being a conduit for information that he received that day.
So what is the objection again? Conduit for hearsay?
No, I amended to lack of personal knowledge.
I see what you're both saying. I believe at this point we haven't heard testimony about how he would have obtained certain information and which scientific conclusions he was going to be basing that information to come to, which is what 703 is for. So let's hear more about the scientific conclusions that he's going to be drawing before we talk about the information used to draw those conclusions. So I'm going to sustain the objection. You're free to go down that path. Just tell us more about the conclusions and process that he used to get to them.
Sure. Sure.
Thank you. You said that you found two errors that were made that day by Neptune Diving Expeditions in dive protocol. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And can you please tell us again what those two errors were?
First, the error was that Lee Allen was allowed to dive beyond his experience and certification level, and second, Neptune deviated from safety standards in the industry.
And where is it that one goes to find these safety standards in the industry?
Scuba Diving 101 is the accepted industry standard for safety precautions.
And that safety standard, if you saw it today, would you recognize it?
I would.
Permission to approach opposing counsel?
Yes.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness?
Of course.
Can you please tell us what that is, Mr. Johnson?
This is an article that I co-wrote with Hayden Hathaway and Thomas Collins called Scuba Diving 101.
And this is where you said that you gathered, this is a learned treatise in your community?
Yes, it is.
And is this where you gathered the information for the investigation that you did to establish dive standards?
Yes, it is, along with the facts of the case that I was presented with.
And how did you go about obtaining the events of that day?
I reviewed the affidavits of Reggie Rogers and Hayden Hathaway most specifically to get the events of the day.
Did you also review dive maps?
I did, yes, and dive logs.
Leading.
I'm going to overrule
Yeah.
this sometime.
Also reviewed dive maps and dive logs and
Okay. Now, back to your conclusions. You said that a diver always needed a dive buddy.
that is correct.
Your permission to retrieve?
Yes.
You said that a diver always needed a dive buddy.
That's correct.
And I was asking you, did Lee Allen have a dive buddy on the day of his death?
Yes and no. This was actually part of my second finding. Acceptable industry standards prohibit a dive master from dividing attention between having a buddy and looking after the group, and this is exactly what Reggie Rogers did on this day. Reggie Rogers was a Neptune employee in charge of the group, and he was acting as Lee Allen's dive buddy as well. This definitely goes against safety standards set by organizations that train dive masters.
And Reggie Rogers was acting as dive buddy and dive master that day, you said. Did this have any effects on the events of that day?
Well, when an emergency came up for a group member, Reggie Rogers had to assist. His choice on what to have Lee Allen do were limited, and none of the choices were good. Ultimately, he approved Lee Allen to go ahead alone. Allen's separation from the group led to his ultimate drowning and death.
Were there any other contributing factors that day?
Most likely there were, yes. Reggie Rogers noticed symptoms of nitrogen narcosis within the first 10 minutes of the dive that Lee Allen died on. After noticing these signs, Reggie Rogers instructed Lee Allen to go ahead alone. Being alone, suffering from nitrogen narcosis, could have impaired his judgment and mental abilities and could have been what led him off course and kept him from joining the others.
And was there any other conclusions that came from your investigation?
Yes, just that Neptune was already concerned about Lee Allen's abilities on the earliest shallow dives. If Lee could not manage a 130-foot dive well, it should not have been clear that a 175-foot dive would be unmanageable. Clearly, he was at a high risk for injury, and Neptune should have pulled him from the dive based on his ability and upon his lack of a dive buddy.
No further questions.
Possibly.